What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Dissect, a film where we dissect your favorite films, film franchises, and TV. Today, on episode 82 of the podcast, we are talking about our first Star Wars movie, like ever, on the show. We're talking about the 2016 Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I am your host, Brett Parker. Joining me, as always, just one of them today, the wonderful Angela of DNA Gaming.
Oh.
And joining us for the very first time on the podcast,
I got a promotion,
is our resident space expert. I'm going to put expert quotation. Our good friend, Andrew Schoening.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, it's so good to have you on the podcast. You've been on the show. You've been on the channel a few times, talking about TV shows. We talked about the Halo series. We did Obi-Wan Kenobi. Am I missing something? We just did Andor, which you guys
we did Andor. Yeah,
have already seen and liked it, and don't hate us for our opinion on it. But that is why we are here today talking about Rogue One, because Andor had just finished. That show ties into this movie, and I figured what way to start off, talking about the Star Wars franchise on this channel than only one of the best, in my opinion. So, but yeah, Schoening, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
But it just there's a hole missing. It feels weird not having Dan on the show, but he's here in spirit. I know Angela's feeling it the worst, and we miss you, Dan, and we're excited to have you back for next week. Angela's excited to just get you back.
Yes, Friday.
Yes, Friday, Dan. Hurry up. Let's go. But yeah, we're talking about Rogue One. And this was, I had been holding off talking about Star Wars movies because there's just so many. And I figured there's just so much time we would have to allot in a single year to talk about Star Wars. So just kind of picking a random Star Wars movie to talk about was good. And especially one that I feel a lot of people like. We'll get your guys' opinions on it as we get in here. But yeah, let's just go around, I guess, and talk about what we thought of this movie. Like our, Angela, have you seen this movie before?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is maybe a first time in a while on this show that everyone on the show has actually seen the movie. We've been going through a huge line of movies where most of us haven't seen it, and it's a lot of the movies that we've had guests on for, and we wanted to invite Schoening on because it's a Star Wars movie, and we've had him on the show for other Star Wars properties, and it's fitting to have him on for this. So we're going to start with our guest. Schoening, what's your history with this movie, and do you like it?
Oh, I'm going to just start off by saying this movie is absolutely fantastic. I will agree with a lot of the comments that I've seen, from people talking about, on Twitter this week as we kind of, put it out there that this was going to be our topic this today. I agree. It's like one of the best Star Wars movies out there. It's a wonderful story, and the sad part is like most of the prequels and everything, how it's got to end, what's got to happen, and they did such a good job of making you this being like the first movie that they did where you didn't see it didn't revolve around a Skywalker. I shouldn't say that you didn't see a Skywalker, but with it not being centralized on a Skywalker character and a lot of characters that you had never even heard of before this point, to be introduced to them and then feel so attached to them and their story by the end of it in such a short time frame. I can't remember what the run time of this movie was, but
it's a little over 2 hours.
They did just such a good job in that time period. And Parker and I did a lot of talking. You really get invested in Cassie and Andor in this one, and Jyn Erso in this one, and it's just I don't know if there's many other Star Wars properties that if like you just handed me a random character and it was just like, hey, here you go. And over the course of 2 hours, I could have been like, hey, I like these characters. I just think they did such a good job. And like I said, they filled such a nice little hole leading up to well, the it leads you legitimately right up to the point where the Star Wars saga originally kicked off. So it was just a very nice thing and it's wrapped in a nice bow and I love it. So
Angela.
I love this. I loved it the first time I saw it. I loved it this time. I actually didn't take notes this time because I really wanted to enjoy it again. But I remember everything. I felt like this is what a Star Wars movie should be. Like it felt like the first time I ever watched Star Wars. So it was that I don't words. I loved it.
Like the
Like
nostalgia
like
feeling.
yes,
just
the
kind of that
nostalgic.
yeah, like I understand, like, the first time you've ever seen something of such grandeur.
Yes, it was great. I loved um what K2SO is that
Yes.
the
Yes,
loved
one of the best.
I loved that. Everything about him from beginning to end. Uh but yeah, can't wait to watch it again. Like it'll definitely be one I watch again. So
Absolutely. I mean, I'm gonna say it right now, this is one of my top, probably 3 Star Wars movies of all time. It's just so much fun. The characters are easy to get invested with. And you know what? As much as people hate the shoehorned, or at least some people would say shoehorned kind of fan servicey crap that they put in it, I loved it because it's a character that I've wanted to see more of in my life, and this is where I got to see that character be a complete and utter evil badass. And yes, did it need to be in the movie? No. Did he need to
mhm.
be in the movie at all? No. But he was there and I enjoyed the hell out of it. And I understand people don't like that kind of, oh, it's just for nostalgia. I get it. I understand. But me, that when I saw this character on the screen, this movie came out in 2016. So I was like, what, 20? I was 25 at the time. Like, I went back to being like a little kid again, just being like, oh, and seeing him do things we never saw in the original saga. We only saw him, before the transformation in the prequel saga. So like seeing, God, it just felt great. But I understand people's discourse with that. Cassian Andor is definitely the lead of this movie, even though Jyn Erso is technically the lead. She is still an interesting character, but I think Cassian takes it over from her. Like he's just so much more compelling. She is there because her father is majorly involved in the whole background of this thing. So I feel some other characters could have been fleshed out a little bit better, but I think they were just kind of thrown in to kind of, make sure that the story goes where it needs to go. But I still enjoyed every character, like this whole gang, being together and doing what they were supposed to do. And if they all fit and they all worked well together, I didn't feel like there was an odd man out. You even have some cameos from, characters that we hadn't seen in the saga since the originals. We had Mon Mothra or I keep fucking up her name. It's Mon Mothma. She came back, which is fun. And you get to see kind of more of her and her kind of behind the scenes of what's going on with her being a rebel leader, being whatever the heck she is. She's technically still called a senator, but yeah, just to kind of see the inner workings. You get to see Yavin 4 again, which is something that we kind of have seen in prior Star Wars movies. So there's a lot of nostalgia bait in this movie, which for me, I don't give a shit. I love that. Just give it to me. Feed it to me. Give me all that fucking nostalgia.
All of it.
I don't care. There was a cameo in this movie where I was like, why did we need that? It was stupid. It was only a few seconds, but I was like, they did not need to be in this movie. And we'll get to that cameo when we
Yes,
get to
they
that point
did.
in the movie. No, they didn't.
I know what you're talking about.
I
Yes,
will
they
I will
did.
die on this hill.
For one of them is one of the worst Star Wars characters of all time. So he's annoying as shit. And the other one beeps a lot. So but I think, and then another thing that I'm kind of torn on is the whole bringing characters back where the actor is dead and they have to kind of recreate that character, and it kind of throws you off because it's only been 6 years since this movie came out, but you kind of see,
Mhm.
you're like, ooh, that looks a little rough. And also, like, I guess we needed that character back. Cool. The worst one was the end one, and because it looked terrible to me. It kind of looked terrible. But I get why they did it, because it does connect directly into episode 4, and it's like, all right, I guess so. But I would get people going, oh god, what? Stupid, so stupid. I think the movie could have ended with, our main characters, at the end, and then it just could have ended, but we got what we got, and you know what? I'm a happy man, because of it. So I love this movie. Not as just a Star Wars movie, but as a movie as a whole, because it felt different from what we've gotten in the Star Wars universe. It literally took a little clip from the scroll of episode 4 and it made it into a 2.5 hour movie. And it worked.
Mhm.
So bravo to Gareth Edwards on that, and all the writing team and all that. So this movie was directed, of course, by Gareth Edwards, and we have talked about this director before on our very first episode ever. We weren't even dissect that film. This was on our very, very, very first episode
Oh gosh, you're
of the
making my brain
podcast.
think.
Godzilla 2014.
I'm like, I knew we did one, but
So yeah. We talked about this was the movie he did right before doing Rogue One. This was the screenplay was done by Chris Weitz and Tony Gilroy, and Tony Gilroy would come back to write for Andor. He was very much involved. He was actually the showrunner for that. The story was done by John Knoll and Gary Whitta. Now, I know Gary Whitta because he's very much heavily involved with Kind of Funny, which is one of the podcasts that literally influenced this podcast to start. So, and he also did Book of Eli. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. That's the one with Denzel Washington. Plays like a blind guy in an apocalyptic world. Had Mila Kunis,
yeah.
and it's actually pretty good. John Knoll, he's done stuff like he did. Let's see. He's done a lot of visual. He's a visual effects producer on a lot of movies. Ready Player One, Pacific Rim, Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol, Super 8, Rango, a couple of the Harry Potter movies, all of the Pirates of the Caribbean, even on the prequel movies. So he's been heavily involved in the Star Wars universe for a very long time. And of course, it was produced by Kathleen Kennedy, the guru over there in Star Wars land for Disney. Some people love her, some people hate her, but she's there. She's been behind probably some of the greatest movies ever made. So listen, you watch any 80s or 90s Steven Spielberg movie, her name is attached to it. So, all right. This stars Felicity Jones, Diego Luna, Ben Mendelsohn, who I absolutely love because he is such a good bad guy. Donnie Yen kicking some ass in this movie. Mads
I
Mikkelsen,
love him.
one of the characters in this movie that was just vastly underused.
Oh yeah.
Alan Tudyk as the voice of K2SO. She's just awesome. Jiang Wen and Forrest Whitaker, who plays a character where I don't really know if I like him, at least in this movie. Music was done by Michael Giacchino, which I figured out that's how you pronounce his last name because there's a documentary about him on Disney Plus right now. Because he directed his first movie, and it's a whole thing, and I recommend it. I can't remember the name of it, but it's on Disney Plus. It's about Werewolf by Night, because he directed that movie, and it was his first time directing, and so it's like his brother documents like the whole journey and like his life and all that. It's really good. He's a fantastic composer. This came out December 16th, 2016, at 2 hours and 14 minutes. Budget was between $200 to $265 million, and this movie made $1.1 billion.
Damn.
And the billion with
I-
the B.
I mean,
Yeah.
it deserved it.
Oh,
Yeah.
fully.
Oh, absolutely. This was also the first Star Wars movie that that wasn't part of the Skywalker Saga. You know, it wasn't an episode. This was a side story. This was the first of they called it the Star Wars anthology, which then would be this, and then it would go to Solo, which not nearly as good as this one. But yeah. I'm not gonna. I mean, people have covered this movie to death. I don't really want to go into crazy behind the scenes on this movie. I mean, other than the fact that it's the 20th highest grossing film of all time, and it was the second highest grossing film of 2016. It got 2 Academy Award nominations for Best Sound Mixing and Best Visual Effects, which I feel it deserved because this movie looks beautiful. Probably some of the best cinematography of all of any of the Star Wars movies, shows, anything. This movie is beautiful. It's also one of the most expensive movies ever made, but it made $1 billion, so I think it's okay.
It did all right.
Yeah.
It did. Did you guys like the new like Star Wars theme that they introduced in this, where it kind of sounds like it's about to go into like the original score, and then it kind of like does a little twist?
Oh,
Did you guys
see, I have a problem with the songs that I'm like, I know what this should sound like, and then I'm like, dang it, that is not how that's supposed to sound.
Yeah.
It's like, because I love that original theme, and then it's like, nope.
I mean, the Star Wars theme is one of them songs that you could have never watched a Star Wars movie in your life, but when you hear it, you're like, hey, that's from that Star movie thing. You know, you know where it comes from.
Yep.
And so I feel like when you mess with that, I'm just like, oh, why'd you do it?
Yeah. It was still good. It was just,
yeah.
just don't mess with my brain. Like, I know what it's supposed to sound like.
Yeah. But yeah, that was I love what they do. Like I feel like every Star Wars property does that in a way where you kind of feel it. You're like, oh, it's coming, and then they do a little we're gonna twist it to something else. You're like, oh, okay. I guess you're trying something different. You don't want to keep using the same thing over and over again, unless you're Cruel Jaws and you use the Star Wars theme. You're like, whoa, you're gonna get sued. Cruel Jaws.
Damn Cruel Jaws.
God, that movie's terrible. It's terrible. Never watch it. It was cool. You know, of course, it's cool to get returning characters. You know, for me, one of my favorite characters is Darth Vader, and to get him back in this movie was fun. I'm gonna say fun. I don't think it was really it didn't need to happen, like as I said earlier, but it was fun for me because I got to see him do cool things, and I'm all about that. We got some returning characters in CG form, of course. We talked about earlier, like Tarkin comes back, and of course, his actor passed away not very long after the original trilogy ended. So he's been gone for I think 20 years before this movie came out. And so yeah, it was weird to see these characters come back in like such a weird way. And then you had Leia at the end. You're like, oh no, that one looked terrible. What happened there? Like at that point, wasn't Carrie Fisher was still alive?
Yeah, but they used her daughter, didn't they?
Yeah, but she doesn't even look like her though. That's the problem. Her daughter really doesn't look like her.
Well,
you could have just
yeah.
just de-age. I mean, they de-age people all the time. I'm not saying like have Carrie Fisher play Leia at that point, but like could have been a way to make it look not like a Play-Doh figure. Like it didn't look very smooth. And yeah, that's I kind of like one of my small gripes on it.
I feel like it was kind of one of those things where it's like they felt like they had to have it in there since it tied so directly into, you know, episode 4.
Yeah.
But it was like such a short, you know, like because all she says is she turns around and she says hope. That's all that she says. And I feel like it was just one of those things where they were like, hey, we got to have her in here. But then it's like they got to the end of production and then they like somebody forgot to put on the final touches on the deep fake. It's just like they forgot to do just one little step there before they sent it out.
I mean, here's the thing, that was all done, like, post-production too. Like, that wasn't
Yeah.
even part of the original shot. They went back and did that whole thing because they were like, "Yeah, why not add in that extra thing?" Because I think it was supposed to end where I was hoping it was gonna end, but they were like, "Yeah, we got this character. We've already seen him. We might as well see him do other things." You're like, "Oh, okay, cool." I'm okay with it. When I saw it in theaters, I almost cried. Um,
Oh, yeah.
but yeah. There was this movie went through a lot of went through a lot of people before they finally landed on Gareth Edwards. Actually, Ryan Johnson was a candidate to direct this movie, but he would end up going and directing Last Jedi a few years later, which is one of the most controversial Star Wars movies probably ever made. Um, you have some cameos by some pretty big Star Wars like figureheads. You have Dave Filoni doing the voice of General Radis or Admiral Radis, which I think is the isn't that the Admiral Akbar type character who's up in the
Mhm.
ship? Yeah. So Dave Filoni, if you don't know,
Yes.
he's the creator behind the Clone Wars show, The Mandalorian, um,
Book of Boba Fett.
Book of Boba Fett, and what's the other? What was the other animated one?
Well, he also had a part in Tales of the Jedi, and then also I think the
Anything
Bad Batch.
animated pretty much for Star Wars is Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
Well, what's the other one though? It was Rebels.
Bad Batch,
Rebels.
wasn't it?
Well,
Oh,
Rebels, Bad
Rebels,
Batch.
yes,
And
and,
yeah, he's pretty much a huge figure right now in anything Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course you got returning, people as, James Earl Jones coming back to voice Vader. You had Carrie Fisher coming
Yeah.
back to some lines for Leia. We had Jimmy Smith come back as what the hell's his name? Bail Organa, Leia's
Mhm.
dad. So you got some returning people, and I feel like a lot of people's gripes with the movie was like, oh, there's so much fan service and so much introducing like old characters. Like, I feel like it needed to be done
Yeah.
to make
Yeah.
sense for this movie because it leads into something major. It leads into that original trilogy. So I feel like some of that is needed, but I understand, people's disagreeing with the things that they added, but whatever. Made the movie fun, at least for me. All right. Are you guys ready to go through this plot? Because there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So this movie starts off with one of the most gorgeous shots of an Imperial ship flying through like the rings of a planet. And it's so beautiful. And then of course it goes to a planet. What's the name of this planet? Anybody got a name for this one? Because I did
Oh.
not catch the name of this planet.
Oh, hold on, I'll do some looking.
Oh,
This-
Lamu. Just saw it.
Lamu.
Yeah. And which is another beautiful planet, just green and mountains. Just like everything about this movie just slaps you in the face with beauty. It's glorious. So it's an Imperial. What is his title? Is he a captain or a director? He's a director. He's Director Krennic. He is a weapons developer for the Imperial Army, and he is going to he needs to find Galen Erso, who is a designer or is a scientist who is helping build this mega weapon for the Empire. He kind of did what he said he needed to do, and then he kind of went into hiding, and Krennic finds him to then bring him back. And, of course, when Krennic shows up, the family's kind of fleeing. He, sends his wife and child away. And when he finally gets with Krennic, he pretty much tells him that, like, it's just me. My wife's dead. I don't know if he says anything about Jin, but I remember him saying, like, his
No.
wife was dead. And,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry. And then she just comes out of nowhere with a with a blaster. It's like, oh,
Like, couldn't you have just stayed hidden?
nope. She needed to protect her husband, but then event just ends up getting herself killed.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no. And of course, the daughter sees it all. She's hiding behind a rock, and she, flees the scene. But before all that happens, the mother calls Saw Gerrera to tell him what's going on, and then everything happens. Jin goes to like a cave. She finds the coolest hatch ever. Like it is blends so well into these rocks in a cave, and she hides in there for a bit as these really cool suited. Are these like the Inferno troopers? The fire troopers.
They have an actual name. I wanted to say they were just flame troopers, but
Yeah, they got the black. You're like, this is
They're
really
cool.
cool. Yeah, they're really
They're
cool.
cool looking.
And yeah, she gets rescued by Saw. And then it jumps 13 years, where now she is in prison. And it just shows her in prison, and then it jumps to Cassian. I was like, wow, I don't feel we needed to see her yet. I feel like we could have just jumped to Cassian, and then we could have been like, oh, look, it's Jin.
Yep.
But no, we had to see
Agreed.
Jin in a prison. And then, yeah. And so we meet Cassian Andor. He is wandering through the streets of this planet. Don't know what it is. Sorry, everybody. There's too many planets in this fucking universe. I am not going to remember them all, and I
Yeah.
didn't even care to look. But he's wandering
So
through a
many.
planet. He's trying to find somebody who's going to give him information. And he runs into this guy who's kind of tweaking out. He's nervous, and he tells him about a pilot for the Empire that defected, and he has a message to give Saw Gerrera. He needs to meet with Saw Gerrera on Jeddah. And then he just murders this guy. First he kills the stormtroopers, which is fine. But then he just murders this man. And you're like, well, all right there, Cassian. I feel like that was unnecessary, but all right, you got to do what you got to do, I guess.
It's fine.
So we get to Jeddah, and we get the defected pilot meeting up with Saw Gerrera's kind of like henchman, and they're going to bring him to him. And we then jump to Jin, who is being transported to another prison, and she gets rescued by rebels, and she beats the shit out of them all. And I was like, I'm very confused. Why is she fighting all these people? It looks like these people are trying to help her. The guy literally lets her out of the handcuffs. Like, I feel like he's not going to do anything to you. And then she gets her ass knocked out by K2SO.
She got clotheslined.
Yeah.
She did.
This is us rescuing you.
Yeah.
Everything that droid says is hilarious. It's just fantastic. Schoening, if you have anything to say, just interrupt me at any point in time.
Hey, I'm liking it.
Yeah, so they go to Jin is taken to Yavin 4, which is the like rebel like mega base. Like this is where their home base is. You see it a lot in the Star Wars universe. You see it in the original trilogy. I think are they still on Yavin 4 in the sequel trilogy?
No.
That's a different one. All right. They kind of look similar.
No. No, they abandoned Yavin 4 after
they destroyed the second Death Star?
Yes. Or I mean I don't think it's mentioned directly whether they still have a base there. They're on different planets. I'm pretty sure.
Even though it looks very similar. The ones that Yavin 4 and then whatever planet they're on for the sequel trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she's getting interrogated because her father is the designer behind this mega weapon for the Empire, which you would later find out is called the Death Star. I'm like, whoever named that, bravo. Did you get an extra cookie at lunchtime?
Probably.
You won the contest. I bet you it was a contest. You know, they're like, all right, everybody, put your slips in the thing, and then they draw it. Like, oh, Timmy, you won. You got Death Star.
The problem was there was only one suggestion in the box.
Yes.
Everybody's afraid they make a bad suggestion, they just get killed, and you're like, oh, no.
At least it wasn't Spacey McSpaceship.
It can always be worse.
Lord. It's like a magic 8. It's like a giant space magic 8-ball. Oh Lord.
I'm never gonna look at that again the same way again.
Oh jeez.
Just shake it.
Yes.
Should I blow up Yavin 4 today?
Oh man. It's fantastic.
Chances look good.
So you find out that the defective pilot was sent to go talk to Saw Gerrera because he has a message from Galen Erso about anything. We don't really know exactly what his message is, but he needs to go see Saw Gerrera about it, and they need to go get him and on Jeddah so they can bring him back. The whole fact of them interrogating her, I think, is pretty funny. And like, the thing is like I like Jin because I think she's tough throughout this entire movie. There's not one, even you know, you get those glimpses of times where it's like she is so hell bent on one thing, you know, that she has to kind of be knocked around in order to get herself back on track. But like the events that she witnesses are very traumatic, so it's like I understand, but
Yeah.
I think she has that core group that really helps her get through it. Where it's not like you're an idiot, we gotta go. I mean, Cassian is like that a lot up
Yeah.
until towards the end, but everybody else seems to be really cool and support her in any way she needs. But they're interrogating her, and I guess she's got a lot of charges on her, and they're like, "We could just turn you over. We could just give you back to the Empire. There's a lot on you." So he's like, "All right, do it. Whatever." So Jin properly meets K2SO, and he does not like her. Everything he says to her is just sarcastic, but so funny.
Oh. He may be one of the single best droids in all of Star Wars.
Gosh,
Great.
yes.
Yeah, so great. And so they're gonna go to Jeddah, and before Cassian leaves, he is approached by one of the head of the rebel forces. I don't know what this guy's name was, but he's like one of the like guys who like stands next to Mothma, and he's like, when you find Galen, you kill him. Like, we're not bringing him back. It's not worth the trouble for that. You find him, you kill him. And then I like the whole thing in the ship where Jin finds a gun or a blaster, and K2SO is just like, no, that's not a good idea. And at first, Cassian's not on board either, and then he's just like, well, okay, because she's like, trust goes both ways. He's like, all right, I guess you're right. And K2's like, really, dude?
No, we're doing this.
All right.
Is any like do you know the percentage of her using that on you? It's high.
Yeah.
Like,
he doesn't even give an answer. He's like, it's just high.
So Saw interrogates the pilot. His name is Bodhi, and he gets interrogated by a method called Boar Gullet, which I'm like, what the fuck? When I first saw this movie, I'm like, what is going to happen? And you find out it's like this squid-like creature that like its tentacles attached to your face, and it can read your thoughts. And I was like, this is weird as fuck. This was the weirdest part of the movie to me. I was like, why did this? Any other way? You made Saw Gerrera kind of a scary kind of character, where like I feel like he could have interrogated him in like a pretty scary fashion, but instead we saw this really weird CG creature flopping its tentacles all over Bodhi's face. And you're like, oh, all right.
And it just made that noise.
Yeah. I'm like, okay.
I found that quote from K2SO when Jin's holding the blaster, and he goes, Would you like to know the probability of her using it against you? And he goes, it's high. And then Cassian just turns and goes like, let's get going. And he just goes, it's very high. I'm just like, oh, that is perfect.
Oh man. So Krennic meets with Tarkin about the progress of the Death Star, as some of the final touches are being put on. So like you get the final, like that dish that gets put on the front, that's where the laser comes out of. And it's such an awesome shot as it's being assembled.
So
and
5 years in the making.
Oh yeah, so good. And then Tarkin just kind of berates Krennic, and then they test it, and they're going to test it on Jeddah because they know that's where Saw Gerrera is, and that's where the defective pilot is. So like, well, why don't we just test the weapon? Because if it doesn't work, then you're kind of fucked, because I'm going to tell the Emperor, and he's probably just going to have you killed. But yeah, they get to Jin, Cassian, and K2SO get to Jeddah. Jin has flashbacks about her time spent, with her father while he was working for the Empire, helping build this weapon. You also see that there's a Star Destroyer hovering over Jeddah, because I guess Saw has just been causing so many issues that the Empire was just like, all right, we got to stop this shit once and for all. Well, let's just bring that thing down there. So we get Jin and Cassian, they're walking through the streets of Jeddah, and they run into two guys that we've seen before in this franchise. Two guys that didn't like Luke Skywalker very much in the cantina back on Tatooine. Really? We're running into this? Not even the same planet. This was one of those things where it was like, why? We didn't need this. This was dumb. They're not even on the same planet. Like, these dudes just have that much money, like, they're throwing around that they're gonna be able to travel on all these damn planets. And how did they get off of Jeddah?
I was just about ready to say the same thing. I'm just like, well, somehow they managed to get
planet
off.
gets fucking destroyed. Right? At least the city does. Like, where were they got off? All right, whatever. But yeah, they get they're the ones that mess with Luke in episode 4 at the cantina, and Obi-Wan cuts off one of I think it was the goofy dude who looked like he had a elephantitis on his face. Got an arm cut off. This was what I think most people saw this scene was just like, that wasn't necessary. Then Jin runs into is it Chirrut or Chirrut?
Sure.
I don't even.
Sure.
Yeah.
Played by Donnie Yen. He's the protector of the will. Pretty much what he
Oh.
was he was like a guard or a protector of the like the Jedi temples on Jeddah. But now that there's no Jedi, they kind of are, they don't do anything. But try to cause problems, I guess, according to Cassian.
But they talk. He's not like an actual like Force user, though,
No.
is he? No, I didn't think so.
I mean, he believes in the Force, as you can tell throughout this entire movie, and all of his little things. But I don't. Some of like when you watch this movie, though, I feel like he is protected by the Force in some way.
Yeah.
But he's not a Force user.
He makes he uses the same line over like multiple times. He's like, I'm one with the Force and the Force is with me. And there's actually a lot of callbacks to that in other areas. You just never see it in the movies. But it's if I remember right, it's an actual like saying that they teach Padawans, when they're young, to try to help them learn how to control the Force.
Yeah.
And it's just I remember when I heard him mutter that, and I was just like, hey, there's some extended lore right there coming through.
But he asks Jin about her necklace, so maybe he knows about the Force, like has grown. I mean, yeah,
he definitely knows about the Force because he's
the protector, but maybe he was trying to.
Yeah, maybe. And also the Force. Oh, sorry. Keep going.
Maybe trying to possibly be like, hey, I can do this too. They can do this. Maybe I can do it too if I believe enough.
Right.
I'm not even 100% sure, but I think there might even be a thing at the very end before he dies that you see him maybe like use the Force just a little bit. I can't remember.
To be honest, I feel like that's right. I feel like there's a possibility he uses the Force throughout the movie because, for one, he's blind.
Right.
And he's pulling off some Daredevil type shit.
You're right.
And to be honest, I feel the Force is helping him in his fighting abilities.
Yeah.
And also Donnie Yen does not have a stuntman. Like, that's all him. Like, throughout this all of his fight scenes.
His dad was a martial arts expert and a musician. So he probably has done this all his life.
Yeah, Donnie Yen, he's been acting for a very long time. And he's most well known, I think, for the Ip Man series, which is like about the guy who I guess taught Bruce Lee martial arts.
Yes.
So, and he does all his own stuff. He's like Jackie Chan, does all his own stunts.
Yeah.
And he's just a badass.
More power to it.
He's going to be the villain in the new John Wick movie.
Ooh.
Saw that.
So we then see like a garrison of stormtroopers going down the streets of Jeddah, and a bunch of rebels ambush it, setting up, throwing grenades and blowing things up. And you find out it's because the reason the Empire is here is because of all the kyber crystals that are on this planet. And so for anyone who doesn't know, the kyber crystal is what is used to get the laser, from a lightsaber. That's what, the color and all that stuff. That's how it gets to work, pretty much. And it's probably worth a lot, now that the Jedi Order is done. And they want to kind of eliminate anything that had to do with the Jedi. So maybe the Empire is just trying to get rid of it all to kind of make sure that no one does anything that'll be bad for them in the future.
Weren't they mining it to use it for the laser
That's
on the Death Star?
right. You're
Yeah.
right. Yep.
Yeah,
You're
they were
right.
using
There
that,
it is.
and
That's why
then
they were doing it.
yep, and then they do it again on in the sequel trilogy on that planet Starkiller base that
Yeah,
used to
yeah,
be
yeah.
the planet Ilum, which was actually the one planet that you see in the Clone Wars episodes where it's where they take all the Jedi like younglings to actually get their kyber crystals. Yeah,
There we go.
the kyber crystals actually play a much deeper story than just the lightsabers. I mean, basically, it's the greatest tool and the worst tool in the whole series.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely forgot that that's what they said, that they were the laser for the Death Star was the kyber crystals were being used for that.
Kind of poetic, really, when you think about it. It's like
Right?
the Jedi used it for so many millennia to protect everybody, and then the Empire just turns around and is just like, hey, you know those things that those Jedi used to use to save you guys? Well, we got it. We're making it really big, and it's gonna blow. And then they use it to blow up the planet on top of that. It's just like,
Yep.
okay.
I just want to say the Jedi Order fucking sucks. Sorry to say. Yeah, an ATST shows up. That causes some problems. And then you see Jin just beating the shit out of a bunch of stormtroopers by herself. And then she shoots a K2 droid, and K2SO is in the bag. He's like, did you even know that wasn't me? And she's like, of course I did.
Sure.
So great. Because you could see like the shock on her face when she shoots it. She's like, oh shit. And then he's just standing there behind her. That's so funny. Chirrut fucks up everyone.
I'm sorry, that's all I can think about now.
I'm a fire my laser.
Oh god damn.
That's all I can think of now.
Chirrut fucks up everyone. He's just such a badass. And yeah, he's got the line where he says, I am one with the Force, and the Force is one with me. And after that, Saw's men take them. And I love when they're putting the things over everybody, and they put it over Chirrut. He's like, are you kidding me? I'm blind.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, was that necessary?
Oh, so good. So the Star Destroyer leaves Jeddah, and people are like, that seems suspicious. I wonder why they're doing that. Jin meets with Saw, and Saw shows her the message from her father, talking about the fact that, he made sure to purposely build like a flaw in the Death Star, and you need to get the plans and, be able to, there's a way to stop this all from happening. We need to destroy this weapon because it's not good. Even though I feel Star Killer is even worse. Remember episode? Yeah, that was crazy. I didn't like it. But yeah, she meets with him, and then everybody else is in the jail, talking to each other, and Cassian's trying to get out. And that's when we then go back up to the Death Star for the test. And it's like, yeah, just blow up Jeddah. Yeah, like, that doesn't seem like a smart idea. Nah, it's a good test. And I remember seeing this originally going, man, this seems really anticlimactic compared to, just the planet blowing up in episode 4 when they're like,
right.
All right, Alderaan, you're done. And it's just like, where this one, it's like, but then you notice, but then if you keep watching, you watch it over and over again, Tarkin only has it at a certain power. He tells them to only shoot, he just wants the city destroyed. He doesn't want the whole planet. And so, yeah, you get this really cool effect where it, you see it, shoot off, and it lands, and then it's very quiet. And then you just see kind of everything slowly coming in waves. And, Jin is, kind of emotional after seeing the message from her father. But then everything is shaking. They're like, what is going on here? And that's when K2's like, yeah, we got to go because there's no horizon out here. They're like, okay. And Saw's like, go. I can't go because I'm like I'm a half a robot. Like this man's got robotic legs. He's got like this thing. I don't know if he's getting high off it or if this thing just keeps him alive, but he's got that freaking oxygen thing. Like, and then he looks really intensely into the camera. And then he fucking, you're like, whoa, Forrest Whitaker, you're going really hard on this role. But yeah, he dies. And it's a cool escape off of the planet. And yeah, Jeddah City is destroyed. And then Tarkin, it's like, good job, Krennic. You did great. I'm going to take it from here, though. And Krennic's like, this is my job. I did this all by myself. It's mine. And then he like storms off. I was like, the thing about Krennic is he's just a big baby. He's just a big baby who doesn't get what he wants because it's you work for the Empire. You know you're going to get fucked by somebody higher than you.
The funny part is Ben Mendelsohn. He plays, of course, the bad guy in Ready Player One as well.
Yeah.
And the funny thing I noticed was when Ready Player One came out after this was his character is the exact same guy.
Yeah, pretty much.
The exact same guy.
He's very good at playing a whiny, just a whiny guy.
It is. It's the exact same guy. It's like the guy that should be the top, but he's not really the top, and he's never really in control. Yeah. And it's just, I had to laugh. I was just like, because when I first saw him, I didn't even remember where I saw him from, and I was just like, man, why does this seem so familiar? And then all of a sudden, I had to go look him up on IMDb, and I was like, oh, that's why. Because he's playing the same dude.
I think he's awesome. I think he plays a very good villain, even if he is very, very whiny. We've seen these villains before, but he does a good job with it.
He's the youngest family member, I bet.
Yeah, probably. But Tarkin tells him, hey, you need to go to Edu, because that's where Galen is stationed. That's where he does like all the work. Because the defected pilot came from Edu and came from Galen Erso's team. So you might want to go talk to him because I'm smelling something fishy, and it's not the fish you want to eat. So Bodhi talks about his time with Galen while they're flying away. And they go on to Edu, which is just like the worst. It's just stormy all the time. And it's horrendous. And Bodhi is trying to help land the ship, and the ship ends up crashing, and the Alliance, finding out about what's going on, goes, well, let's go. We got to send the squadron out to Edu to help. Bodhi and Cassian, they go on their own to go find Galen. They need to find where he's located, but secretly Cassian is supposed to go out there to kill Galen and then end the mission. But Jyn decides to follow along, even though they don't know that she's there. Because she's got to go find her father first, because she has that like inkling, she feels that something's not, going the way that she was told. So the blind, what's his name? Chirrut and Baz. Baz is the dude with the big gun who's friends with Chirrut, who's like his protector, I guess. They follow along as well. So everybody's just like, everybody's supposed to stay at the ship, but everybody ends up going, and you're like, okay, this isn't gonna end well. Krennic lands on the planet, meets with Galen, and of course, the Empire sucks. So he's like, well, somebody is a spy, and somebody is feeding information to the rebels, and I'm going to find out who it is. So he lines up all of Galen's scientists in a row, and was just going to kill them all. Until Galen came forward and said, it was me. Like, well, Galen, you are a pretty good guy, standing up for all these people, because that's a lot of fucking people just mow down just for one person. You're like, okay. They still kill everybody involved, even after Galen comes out to say that he is the spy. And he's like, well, fuck it. You made me look like an idiot. So he kills all of his scientists. And then the rebels show up and kind of set off an explosion. They blow up Krennic's ship, I think, right? Or they blow up something right in front of Galen, and Galen kind of gets hit, and he's dying. Jyn meets up with him. They have their long lost meeting. They haven't seen each other since she was a kid. And
Papa, it's me.
Papa. Papa. And her nickname is Stardust. Yes. And yeah, they have this conversation, it's sad because he's gonna die. And then of course it even makes it worse when he's just like, I have so many things to tell you, and then he dies. And you're like,
But
why would you say that? It's terrible. And this is that moment where she is heartbroken, she's kind of in shock and she doesn't want to leave him. Of course, Cassian comes and is like, we gotta go. It's like, no, I can't leave him. It's like, he's gone.
he did.
Yeah. You're like, but I need the body. And then you just think as the base is blowing up, it's like his body's just getting blown up in the smithereens.
Yeah.
It's a terrible thing to think about. So yeah, they escape the planet again. And then her and Cassian get into kind of like a confrontation. Like, hey, you were going there to kill my dad. And he was like, well, yeah, I was, but I didn't because I changed my mind. So why are we fighting?
Mm-hmm.
We then get Krennic going to a very hot volcanic planet called Mustafar, home to Darth Vader. And you get to see him in the back to tank, and you don't get to see his face. So it's like, it's not Hayden Christensen, so I guess it's fine. We don't get to, we don't see his face without the suit on. But of course, like somebody comes in to tell him that Krennic is here. And then we get Krennic kind of just hanging out, and then you get the really cool entrance of Darth Vader, and you're like, God, I've missed this so much. This was child Parker just watching this movie. Like, I love this movie so much.
Daddy.
So great. So yeah, he Vader tells Krennic he's got to fix whatever problem Urso caused because he knows that there's something wrong with, like, that Urso purposely fucked something up on the Death Star, and Krennic needs to figure out what it is. So he needs to go to Scarif, which is where the plans are, to kind of figure this out. And, of course, this is just kind of Krennic going there to be a whine ass to kind of make sure he's still in charge of the Death Star project. He's pretty much going behind Tarkin's back to just be a whiny little bitch. And then, after Vader tells him all this stuff, Vader walks away and he's like, oh, so I'm still leading that project. And that's when you get the, like he does the force choke. And then you get the line, make sure not to choke on your aspirations. And I went, oh my God, Vader with the quips. So good.
Just a good Vader line.
I love this. I don't care. People can hate me, can say it's the worst. I don't give a shit. It's so good. And Vader looks good too. I really wish initially I really wish Darth Vader wasn't in that suit. I really wish they kind of did like a redesign on him to make, because I feel like he's, even when he looks cool and he's doing thing, I'm like, there's no way this man was doing like flips and shit as Darth Vader and doing these crazy ass shit when that suit is so cumbersome.
Oh, but he's got the Force.
But the Empire's got all this money and resources. Come up with a better suit. Whatever. I'm not gonna bitch too much.
He's more robot than man now.
That's true. You just become like oh fuck, why am I blanking? This is the fucking one with the forearms. General Grievous? Yeah.
Yep.
Darth Vader. Just fucking 6 lightsabers. Don't mess with Vader.
Like, how did he not cut a limb off? Like, how can you control all of those? Seriously.
Right? I don't know. He was spinning those things so fast, like a helicopter, you couldn't even see the lightsaber anymore. It was just,
I would have cut at least 2 off.
Oh. So an alliance meeting takes place to see what to do next. And Jin's like, well, why don't we send the best people to Scarif to get the plans, and then we can stop this. And everybody's like, sounds like a terrible idea. And Mon Mothma's like, yeah, well, we don't have full support of the council, so we're not doing it. Like, you left the Senate for this, and you're just doing the same shit the Senate's doing. Cool, Mon Mothma. Cool. So she goes out, and of course, you get, all the whole group that she's been with is kind of like, hey, we want to fight. We want to join in. And then Cassian just becomes a nice guy. He's like, I got all these people. Let's do this. I'm like, all right, or it's going to be unsanctioned. So here we go. So they steal a is it I think it's an Empire ship, right? It's an Imperial ship that they had taken because
Yeah.
that was the only way they were going to be able to get on Scarif without being detected. And of course, you get the whole thing where they're trying to leave, and they're like, "That's an unsanctioned, ship. You can't take it." And it's like, "What's your call sign?" And Bodhi's like, "Oh,
Say something.
say something. Rogue One." You're like, "There it is, everybody! There it is."
I said the name of the movie, guys.
It's like, "What's your name?" "Han." And I go, "Solo." So Solo, and you're like, "Fuck! Why?" This one wasn't as bad though. That other one's terrible.
Yeah.
Bail Organa talks to Mon Mothma about, I guess, Obi-Wan at some point, right? Is this what he mentions? Like, a friend of mine who fought in the Clone Wars with me, he's been away for a while, but I bet you if I called him, he would come. Is he talking about Obi-Wan? Or is he talking about Leia? Because isn't Leia his daughter?
Well, I thought
Yeah.
he said she.
He does, though. That's what's confusing, because technically, there's nothing indicating she's a Jedi, for one. You don't find that out until episode fucking 9 when they talk about that shit, when they talk about her training with Luke to become a Jedi.
Yeah,
So, like,
you got
who
a
is he
point.
talking about? Because I don't know.
Because that's who I assumed.
I guess that was something I looked over, and now I gotta almost go back. I gotta look at it.
I don't know. It's weird. So the team gets cleared to go through. They get to in order to get to Scarif or onto the planet itself, you have to go through. There's a whole laser shield around the planet, and they have to get through this barrier, and they have to get checked first, and they end up passing the check, being able to cross through the barrier and get onto Scarif. They need to get to the Citadel because that is where all the documents and plans and all that are stored. And then, at first they were just going to take them and go back, but it doesn't turn out to happen that way. And then, of course, we got to get the pre-battle speech, which Jin gives. Don't know what she says other than "Hoorah, hoorah, let's go, team." And then they do a thing in the middle with their hands, and then they all
Go team.
And then they get inspected, and they all hide in the bottom of the ship. And it's like they didn't do a very good inspection if they're all down there. Like, what? They didn't know this hatch existed. Come on, guys, we gotta go.
Yeah. They can't see that.
Oh Lord. So yeah, the ship gets inspected. They don't find anything. Krennic goes to Scarif. And then after the inspection is over, the team is sent out. You got Cassian and Jin there, and K2SO are being sent to go retrieve the plans, and then everybody else is going to kind of cause distractions and ways to get off of the planet. And none of it goes to plan at all. So the other team goes and lays a bunch of mines around to kind of distract. Like, it's pretty much to pull everybody from the base out to what's going on so that Jin and Cassian have an easier way of accessing the plans from the vault. So you also get an unnecessary line where when they're about to get into the building, K2SO goes, "I have a bad feeling about," and then he gets cut off, and then he's like, "What?" And I was like, we didn't need that. Because he is never involved with the character who says this line. The only person who's ever allowed to say that fucking line is Han Solo. Why is this droid saying this line? Stop it. This is the shit that annoys people. All right? This stuff. Oh, we also didn't mention the C-3PO R2-D2 cameo as they're flying away because we needed that.
To defend K2 just a little bit, it's actually said, I think it's said in every Star Wars movie.
Han Solo is the first one to say it, and I don't care.
He's the only one that gets to say it, right?
The only one who gets to say it. Yeah. Well, it's just one of those things like we need to put it in every Star Wars thing, and you really don't though. I don't think if I go to watch a Star Wars movie and they don't say the line, I don't think in my review I'm gonna be like, they didn't say this line, and it puts it down a peg for me because it's unnecessary. But I digress.
I'm pretty sure I've read that though, that they have said that in
Probably.
almost every single one. I think it is.
It's just one of those things. So yeah, so Krennic demands a station-wide inspection. I love the guy's just like, the whole thing? He's like, yep, you better get started. And I was like, oh no, that guy's gonna quit.
He's like, oh, this job.
Oh, I hate this so much.
I gotta pay my bills. Yeah.
So then all the mines get blown. They get ignited. Chaos rains down. Krennic, I love when Krennic sees all the explosion. He turns around and everybody's just staring, and he's just like, is somebody gonna do something? Send out the garrison. What are we doing? Why are we standing around? And Tarkin gets alerted of the incursion. And then, of course, you get the line of he has to go let Lord Vader know. They get the vault open, and then it just cuts back to outside. I don't like how, like, little things happen with one character, then they got to cut to another character. And then it's like a huge, long scene, and then they cut back to another character, and it's only like 30 seconds of whatever's happening with them, and then it cuts back, and you're like, can we just focus on one person for a significant amount of time, and then we could kind of feed back, like if let's say the characters are communicating with each other, or they're like, what's going on out there? And then it cuts to them doing that. I don't like when it's like, all right, guys, the vault's open. Cut to another thing. It's like, okay, cool. So we then get to see AT-ATs. And these are probably one of the worst designed like things ever in Star Wars ever. They are the biggest, lumbering, slowest things ever created, and for some reason they cause so much destruction. They're I mean, I understand the ones that have like they're like hollowed out so they can like transport stuff. But the other ones are just, I feel like they're just like, who designed this? They seem so bad.
They use them.
They do.
I mean, they're pretty
They cause a lot of destruction.
they're pretty scary.
But it is a cool scene where it comes out of like the smoke and it starts shooting down on them. But the rebels show up. So some of the rebel fighters were able to come through the shield before the shield closes. And of course, you get the casualties of the dude like about to like, oh, go up. He's like, I can make it. You ever seen A Bug's Life?
Yes.
The bug's
I
like,
can't help it.
I can't
help it. It's so beautiful.
That's that guy.
Exactly that.
I can make it.
I love it. I still quote that from time to time. I love it.
So much fun. K2 gets a weapon because he's got to stand guard at the station there as Jyn and Cassian go into the vault. And it's a cool moment because it's like, this is the last time they're ever going to see him. And this is kind of the final time that it's like the nicest thing he ever says to Jyn. I don't remember exactly what he says to her, but I was like, oh, this is nice. Because I like the other line before they even leave Yavin, where he's like, you know what? I'm starting to like you. Cassian told me. I had to say that. Or something like that. So the shield gets closed. The AT-AT, you get a scene where it looks like it's about to take out a bunch of the rebels, and then the X-fighters or the X-wings start coming in and start taking out the AT-ATs, which is cool. Like you get the whole head blowing up, and then you get some freaking like frog or like this alien freaking dude who's like croaking as he's like shooting a laser gun. I was like, I don't remember I was like, what the hell? He like takes out the leg of one. Pretty cool. But then you find out that Bodhi, because they shut the gate, they can't communicate with any of the rebels above it. So Bodhi has to kind of like hardwire himself in to be able to communicate with that. That takes so long for him to do that. So he's got to take it looks like it, was like 200 years old. He's got to like link it up to this thing. He's got to take like 60. Of course, he connects it, and then it's too short. He like gets caught because he's trying to wrap it around something. And then he gets confronted by stormtroopers. But then they get distracted, and he's able to get in there and do what he's got to do. We finally, the Imperials are just like, oh, maybe we should let some of these TIE fighters go. We have about 75 of them in this hangar. Let's use them. We've only been getting attacked for like 25 minutes already, but let's use our ships.
Yeah.
And who doesn't love the sound of a TIE fighter?
Right?
It's one of the coolest sounds in Star Wars ever.
Yep.
So, yeah, you get Jyn and Cassian there in the vaults. They're trying to find, what the plans would be called, and they find Stardust. And, Cassian's like, well, how do you know that? That's what it is. And he's like, well, because that's me. Because it's her nickname from her father. And then you get the most tragic death of this entire movie, where K2 he is trying to, get rid of all the stormtroopers that have come through. It's just too many, and he gets taken out. And then that's where he says you got to climb because the power goes out for a second, which then fucks everything up because they got to use like this really cool game. I want to. Can we get one of these at like a Dave and Buster's so I can get like a prize?
Right?
Or something?
Yeah.
It's really cool, but the power goes out. It fucks with it, so they got to actually go out there and climb. And that's when K2 like sacrifices himself. He smashes the panel to lock them into the vault, and then he dies. And it's sad.
It's very sad.
So yeah, they have to climb to get the plans, which is terrifying. Everything is always in such a chasm.
Yeah.
It's like, boy, this must have been terrifying to build. I wonder what these builders are, because they're just like, they must have no fear.
Architecture's weird in the future.
Yeah. So many.
Or a long time ago.
So many pits. But Bodhi finally gets the comms working, and he is so happy. But unfortunately, oh wait, never mind. That's not for a little bit later. Jyn gets the plans as Krennic intercepts. She and thank God she clipped it to her belt because she would have dropped it. But at first you think she drops it, but she actually grabbed another one as well. So that one falls, but she's got it, straps it to her belt. But unfortunately, Krennic intercepts, and he kind of knocks out Cassian. And Cassian should have been dead. Should have at least had a broken back because he smokes his back on two giant beams and then falls probably another 20 feet onto this platform. Yeah, he is not getting up. But
he's feeling not good.
No.
He's got a little problem going on.
I mean, he can fall that far and feel perfectly fine. I can spend 8 hours hanging tags at work and feel like I'm dying.
The first one broke his back. The next one popped it back into place.
Yes.
He's like, oh no! Yay! Oh no!
Oh, yeah.
Why you have to be 3?
It's just a flesh wound.
Number.
Oh Lord. So they're told that they need to, in order for the comms to work, they need to hit a master switch. Now you get the one guy who's like, I'll do it, and he just goes as like 15 troopers are shooting in their direction. He's like, I'll go, and then immediately dies. And you're like,
yeah, he's like, I got
probably
this.
should have looked before you just ran out there like a psychopath, but all right. And
you got to look both ways before you cross the street. He just did not learn that part.
He just went out there. And Chirrut decides he's going to try because he's got the Force. The Force is around him. So he, of course, chants his I am one with the Force is one with me at the entire time that he's walking out into, blaster bullets are going by him. None of them are hitting him. And he gets to the panel. He turns it on. And then he's coming back and someone shoots the panel, shoots the thing, and it blows up. And that's what ends up killing him, which is it's a sad moment, when Baz comes over and tries to, be with him. And
because Baz tells him to run.
Yeah. And that's when the thing blows up behind him.
And he's just like, I got this.
Yep.
I'm fine.
So of course, which Chirrut dying, Baz is pissed. But before we get to that,
You know what?
we get more space battle. Just shooting. And there's people just shooting at that shield, and they're like, it's not working. No shit. What do you think we're trying to do? We're trying to get it to open up, dumbass. Stop wasting your time. And you get Red and Gold Leader back from the original trilogy. And then, again, more characters that they had to use this weird facial thing where they had to use the like CG the original
Mhm.
actors' faces onto other actors. Be like, hey guys, remember Red and Gold Leader? They're back, and you're like, that's cool. I
So
mean, that's really cool.
so fun fact about that little thing in there. That wasn't even going to be like a part of the movie. When there was a couple producers, they were rummaging through like whatever you want to call it, like a warehouse that had a bunch of like old film tins and stuff in it from like the old Star Wars movies. They came across some unused footage in a film tin that was from episode 4 that had Red and Gold Leader in it, and they actually took that and they put it in the movie, and then they had to digitize it and make it so that it worked.
So like fit
But
in, yeah.
yeah, but so it's actually kind of neat because that section is actually a piece from episode 4 that never got used until then obviously, but it wasn't originally meant for that. Yeah, well, yeah, Disney magic.
Disney magic.
The magic is the best magic.
So yeah, so we get more space battle. We get a couple of these rebel ships have like EMPs that shut the power off of one of the Star Destroyers, which then causes it to kind of dip. And you're like, oh shit, it's gonna hit that other Star Destroyer. And they're like, we gotta send in the hammerheads. And you're like, what the fuck is a hammerhead? And then Bodhi is able to communicate with Admiral Radis up in the top. And right after he's done talking to him, he dead. Boom. He blows up.
Yeah.
Boz fights his way through troopers until he can't anymore. He just goes through. He's just taking out as many as he can. He's pretty much sacrificing himself. And then he ends up blowing, like one of the guys drops a grenade and he shoots the grenade and it, he's gone now. Jin makes it through a door that always opens and shuts and it's terrifying. I'm like, why does this exist? It just constantly opens and shuts. And when she goes through it, I was like, man, that door stayed open a little longer than it was before. But I, can't kill her that way. That would be a really lame ending.
Plot armor.
Gotta love that plot armor. She's got a thick. We see the Hammerhead ships. They show up, and their job is to literally ram into the side of the Star Destroyer to push it into the other Star Destroyer, which then causes both Star Destroyers to crash into the shield, destroying the shield, because what they need to do is get the plans up to this. So Jin gets up to the top of the Citadel. She puts the plans into like a computer that is supposed to send it up, but the satellite needs to be aligned. So she's got to go to the end of this pier here to fix the satellite, get it aligned, and then a TIE fighter's like, hey, you're not supposed to be there. Starts shooting at her. Like, whoa, the fuck, man. And then this is when Krennic shows up. And to be honest, this is kind of a lame ending for Krennic. Like, there really was no fight with him. It was kind of like you had their words, like, who are you? And she's like, you know who I am. I'm Jyn Erso, daughter of Galen Erso. And his revenge. All this stuff. And you think it's going to be a fight. And then Cassian just shoots him. And you're like, all right.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. And I, to be honest, when I even recently watching, I was like, was there more? Was there supposed to be more that happened after that? But nope. He gets knocked out. They get the plan sent up. And of course, Radis is like, we got the plans. We're getting a transmission. It's a trap. No, sorry, wrong one.
Wrong one.
That's all I could think of during the whole scene with them. Is like, don't do it. It's a trap.
Another thing that was terrible about the sequel trilogies, they killed fucking Akbar, and I was like, you fucking pieces of shit.
I love Admiral Akbar. It's the best.
Yeah.
So she sends out the plans. The Death Star shows up because I guess this bitch can go through hyperspace. And you're like, wow. That must be a lot of power. Where are you getting all that? Because that's a literal planet. It's a literal planet.
Yeah.
And you get the whole thing where Tarkin is like, we're going to destroy the planet. It's the only way we're going to stop the plans from getting released. And it's kind of ironic for Krennic because he looks up and he sees the Death Star. He knows what's going to happen. And he is pretty much going to witness the weapon he helped get made kill him ultimately. And Tarkin gives 0 fucks about it.
Yeah.
You get the whole thing. It's like, well, who's going to take care of all these? Those are all rebel ships. It's like, oh, don't worry. Vader will take care of that. You're like, oh, shit. Can't wait to see how that looks like.
Yep.
So pretty much everybody knows they're going to die. Like Jyn and Cassian know they're going to die. So they go down to the beach. And, you know, you see, and it's crazy because, like, when they shoot it off, the laser from the Death Star, it doesn't look that like it's going to cause a lot of damage. Like, it's like, whoop, little thing in the sand. And then it just grows. And you're like, okay. But Cassian and Jyn kind of embrace before the wave of fire hits them. And this is where the movie should have ended.
Yes.
It should have. I mean, I feel a lot of people would agree with me. This is where it should have ended. But you know what? For me, what comes next is what I've wanted for so long.
Right.
I've wanted for so long, and I don't care. I just don't care what people think. The scene's so fucking great. So Vader. Well, actually, we see some rebels. The rebels from episode 4, the ones with the goofy ass helmets. I'm like, these guys are dressed terribly. Who comes up with these uniform designs? They're awful.
Yes.
They're like,
I've
we
said
have
that multiple times.
Yeah, they're terrible. we got the plans. We got what we need. So they need to bring it. And of course, it's got to be super dramatic. Like the guy's running. He gets to the door. The door doesn't open all the way. And he's like, and then it's like, you can just hear the breathing at the end of the hall. And you're like, oh shit. And then the fucking lightsaber. And you're just like, oh my God. And then he just starts fucking murking them all. He uses his force choke, fucking throws one dude to the ceiling, slices him while he's still on the ceiling. He's just chopping everybody up, doing cool things. I'm like, oh my God. Oh, I almost cried watching this
The
scene.
hallway scene is the pinnacle. I'm sorry.
So unnecessary, but so fucking great. And I don't care. I just don't care. It's so great.
Oh,
And of course, you get the last second, like the guy hands it off because he can't get through the door. So he hands off the plans just as Vader stabs the dude. And they get through, and Vader does his thing. And then, of course, they get on another ship that departs. And I was waiting for Vader to get to the edge and try to fucking force him back. But he never does. You just get the cool, like him just standing there with his lightsaber. And you're like, thank you.
Thank you.
This scene was filmed after the movie was done. Like, it didn't need to be done, but it did, and I don't care. I love it so much. And then it just continues because then they get to another ship, and this is when they give the plans to Leia, and she looks terrible, and they're like, "What does this mean?" Like, hope. And you're like, "Okay, this didn't need to be here, but okay, we got it." What does it mean? Hope. And that's it. That is Rogue One, a Star Wars story. What a fun one. I love this movie. I've seen this movie so much. I think I've seen the original trilogy a lot in my life. But this is creeping up as a Star Wars movie that I probably watch yearly. It's so good. It's just so good. And, you know, even with those ham-fisted, nostalgia-baited scenes that they put in there, or all this stuff, like, I'm just a sucker for it. I'm one of those people who just doesn't care. It was fun. The Vader scene, again, did not need to be in the movie, but it was, and I love it. And I love it's there. And I know a lot of people don't like that it's there, but hey.
Yeah, I don't care. That is pinnacle Star Wars right there. Just Vader being the most badass that he can possibly be. It's
freaking amazing. But we're gonna have a lot of comments. We got a lot of comments.
So many. Dan wants you to read his from. It's in Discord.
Oh, I thought he commented on Twitter.
Oh well, he commented in Discord. He said he wants you to read that one.
All right.
You'll love it.
All right. So every week, as you know, we always post on Twitter what movie we're going to be covering for the week, and we let you all comment on your thoughts about the movie. And we're going to start off with a couple comments from our co-host who is not here today, since he couldn't join us to talk about the movie, we figured we'd get some comments. Oh boy, I just fucked up my whole Discord, but that's fine. The video will be fine for about 2 seconds. So Dan's got 2 comments. His first one is, my biggest complaint about this movie is the lack of boobs. Give me dem Wookiee titties.
Oh no, we're not gonna know what his porn name is. He didn't say anything to me.
You know, I said that with the straightest face because it's something that I just expect from Dan. It is what it is. But his comment on Twitter, is he said, one of my personal favorite Star Wars films, up there with Empire Strikes Back. It actually felt like OG Star Wars. Plus, not focusing around the Skywalkers or Jedi is always welcome. I mean, yes, we get Darth Vader, who is technically a Skywalker, but he's not a prominent character in this movie, even if people feel he's ham-fisted in there. But I agree, Dan. This is definitely top with, Empire Strikes Back is, I feel, will always be my number one, and I think will always be number one for a lot of people who like Star Wars, because it's just a fantastic movie. But yeah, this one is top 3 for me. I don't know if I put it at 2 or 3, but it's definitely top 3 for me. I like the feeling, how different it feels compared to just thank God the Skywalker Saga is over, in my opinion. It just needed to be over. I love you, Mark Hamill. I love you. But for God's sake, that prequel or that sequel trilogy. Our next comment is from our good friend Darren Lundberg over at Nostalgia Cast. He said, a really good movie when it's not trying to shove empty fan service down our throats. I will take it all for you, Darren. Shove it down my throat. Yeah, you can make that sexual. I don't care. Our next one is from Brews with Steph. That I genuinely like this one. Genuinely. I can't fucking read. That's a word. It's hard. I genuinely liked this one and hoped all the other expected anthology movies would follow suit. This one felt like the originals, whereas Solo felt like a letdown not in the same time period. It's because of Rogue One that I was really hyped to see the Andor show. Yes, Solo definitely did not it did not feel in the same vein as this at all. So I agree. Our next one is from Bill Reads Bad Reviews. Make sure to go check out their podcast at Bill Reads Bad Reviews. Love Rogue One. Hated it the first time I saw it, but once I went back with a more open mind, I really got to experience what sets it apart. Totally one of my faves. Our next one is from Movies for Days. And honestly did not care for it. Disney Star Wars has proven to not be for me. Hey, that's understandable. I know a lot of people just kind of write off any Disney Star Wars movies, and I get it. They do feel so different compared to even like the prequels have their issues, but they still don't feel like Disney, This one, though, to me felt the farthest from being a Disney Star Wars of any of the Star Wars movies that have been made since being acquired by Disney. I don't know. Our next one is from Filler Instinct. It might honestly be the best one. This and the opening of the Helter Skelter Last Jedi give us a glimpse into the war of Star Wars. I teared up when they finally restored my favorite character to his former glory. Are you talking about our Lord and Savior, Lord Vader? Because I agree. But yeah, the opening scene to Last Jedi, probably one of the best scenes of that entire movie. Our next one is from Blazin' Blue Review. Tend to watch a lot of fan edit of it. When I do watch it, it's not bad, really good. Just needed a touch up here and there. See, I don't like that. I am fine with people doing fan films of movies, but I hate fan edits. Leave that, like, the movie is made, it's done with. I don't need an alternate version of that movie unless it's being done by the original filmmaker. I just don't see it. It doesn't need to be done. If you want to make a fan film, cool. Fan edits, not a fan of that. I just feel like, why? It doesn't need to be done. But hey, people like them, and good on you. Our next one is from Alonzo Richardson, at Alonzo the Artist. One of the best of the movies in the series. I agree. Whoa, Michael Howe's back. You remember Michael Howe, Angela? He left us a comment on a couple of our shit,
Oh.
Terminator movies. And he left us
Yes.
a long one. I'm not going to read the whole
Yeah.
thing word for word. It's kind of his whole thought process on this movie.
I think I missed that one on Twitter.
It says, I'll try to keep this brief. It's not very brief. Rogue One is a good film, but I've never been able to understand the all-out worship this film gets online. It reminds me of all the Jar Jar is a secret Sith Lord BS, where something that seemed simple is rerouted to seem cooler and more epic. All right, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to read this whole thing. I don't care. He said, much like Gareth Edwards' Godzilla film, the lead character is just so bland. Listen, Jyn Erso is miles and miles and miles better than that just generic lump of nothing that is Taylor, whatever the fuck that dude's name is, from Godzilla. God, he is just bland. I think he's a great actor, but that character sucks. Well, those around her are much more interesting, and I can kind of agree. You guys could agree. Like, do you feel like the characters around Jyn are more interesting than Jyn herself? Or are you guys like?
I feel like Jyn was a catalyst to basically the rest of the. I mean, like she was there to kind of like hold stuff together, but really, it's the other characters that make the movie what it is. I mean, there's a reason why we got a Cassian Andor TV show. I mean, it's because there's a character there that people are like, heck yeah, I
cool.
like this dude.
Yeah. Plus, the first kill we see by Cassian in this film felt like the filmmakers were going, see that? He shot first. I didn't really get that at all.
Yeah, but I didn't think about that.
Of all the people around Jyn, I was more so interested in Bodhi Rook. Much like Finn in The Force Awakens, I wanted to know more about this defector, but alas, it's just shoved in to give the others the access they need. So I feel the difference between Finn and Bodhi is that Bodhi was going to be in one movie and Finn was going to be in 3, and they still didn't do Finn justice in that trilogy. And I feel the reason Bodhi got, they need these characters to be able to complete their mission. And unfortunately, this movie was already almost 2.5 hours. Like, you'd have like a 3.5 hour movie if you went into full detail on every single side character. The only character that you really need a full description on is Jyn, because she is technically the lead character. So you need to get more of her background because she's connected to this whole thing more than anyone else. And Cassian, you got a show now, so you get to figure out his whole thing based in the show. I agree and I don't agree. I hate that they did that to Finn because I thought Finn was a cool character. They just did him. They did a lot of characters in the sequel trilogy in Injustice by not fleshing characters out, not doing anything interesting with them. In one movie, they literally have Finn going to a fucking casino planet to go search for a character that literally does nothing to help build the story. I digress. The extra stuff.
How do you really feel?
I always do, Angela. Do I ever fail?
Nope.
The extra stuff in regards to the Death Star also feels very unneeded. I don't agree with that at all because the whole point of this movie is to get the plans to destroy the Death Star. So why would you not want information about the Death Star in here?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
You want the stuff about the Death Star in here because that's the point of this movie. But guys demanding they receive credit. They're fucking people from the Empire. Of course they're going to do that shit. They're all whiny bitches. Star Wars, everyone who works for the Empire, they're all whiny bitches. They are. All they do is whine. Did you see the sequel trilogy? Fucking, what the hell was that dude's name? What was the redheaded guy?
Yeah.
Oh.
You know what I mean, though.
Yeah, I know.
He was the First Order officer who was always so like uppity all the time. This is another whiny bitch.
I wanted to punch him in the face.
Oh my god!
But
no, that's just how the Empire works.
I mean, Kylo Ren's even pretty whiny in that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Anakin is a whiny little bitch.
Yes.
In the prequels,
that's what happens when you go to the dark side.
You just become a whiny
bitch. So, like, I don't agree with all of this statement, Michael. But you know what?
No.
I appreciate you voicing it. Then it says like all these little tests when the test in episode 4 suffices, let alone finding out that the sync in hyperspace travel. I I'm okay with finding out all these things that they didn't explain in the original trilogy because, to be honest, that's George Lucas didn't even have that idea. This is kind of the whole point of this universe is being able to take those original stories and kind of branch off of them. George Lucas doesn't give a flying fuck. That man made $4.5 billion on this franchise. Like, yeah, he still cares, but like, I don't think he watched this movie going, I wouldn't have done that. Like, he probably, I mean, I don't know.
Actually, he said that he actually said that it was probably one of his favorites.
There we
which
go.
is really
There you
saying
go.
something when you're the creator of the series and then you sell it off and then Disney goes and does this and then he's just like, "Whoa, well,
Yeah, nothing I
should
can
have
do
done
about
this
it.
years ago."
Yeah.
And he goes like this, and money falls into his hand.
Ka-ching. Ka-ching.
I don't think does he make any money based off of this now?
I'm
I would
'Cause he
I
sold
would be
the whole
surprised if
franchise,
he
so I don't think he
doesn't.
gets anything from it.
Yeah,
I'm
but
could be
sure
wrong,
he
though.
makes
I could be wrong.
something.
I think they hire him on as like a
Consultant.
consultant, so I'm sure he's making money somewhere from it.
Probably. And then it says also the idea that the weakness in the station was intentional kind of defeats. See, this is another one where I don't agree with. He said it kind of defeats what Lucas seemed to be getting at, that the Empire thought they were building this thing that was going to be unstoppable, that they didn't double check everything properly. I mean, they didn't. They hired Galen Erso to build
Yeah.
this.
Yep.
He did this thing he built this flaw in the system. They didn't check it correctly, and then it ended up fucking them over in the end. So I don't agree with any of that. And then there's Vader. See, I will agree with this, even though I loved it. I will agree with everybody's gripe about the Vader scenes, even though I love them. It says, and then there is Vader. His inclusion just feels too fan servicey. 100%. From Krennic going to him to whine. Krennic's just a bitch. And that end hallway scene. That scene feels like the biggest, to quote Kevin Smith, fan wank in the entire film. And boy,
But
did
I
I
loved
fan wank
it.
away.
I loved it.
Exactly.
I was gonna say I'm sorry.
I
It almost
know,
made the movie
we're
for
all
me.
just suckers for this shit. People are like, you're the
I mean-
problem with Hollywood. It's like, listen, I'm a dude who talks about movies in my basement. I have no effect on what fucking Hollywood does.
I mean, I'm in my basement too, but I don't even have to physically see Vader. All I have to do is hear the breathing, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
I'm like,
Yay.
yep.
Yep.
Let's go.
When you can just play that sound clip of him breathing, and I'm just like,
oh,
oh, sweet Star Wars.
yes.
I whip out my Darth Vader lightsaber back there, and I'm ready to
Was
go.
It's like, I'm so glad you finished that sentence.
I'll whip it out.
Oh,
I whip out my
yes.
personal lightsaber, and we.
In the original draft of Revenge of the Sith, Vader was quipping as he killed each separatist. Okay. Now, if he had done that as he went on his killing spree here, that would have been more entertaining. He was hell-bent on a mission. Like, hell-bent on something that could be catastrophic for the people he worked for. So, I don't know if quipping would have been the best thing to do during this situation. Like, when he does the whole thing where he force chokes Krennic, and then says, make sure you don't choke on your aspirations. Like, that was a perfect moment for a quip. But for that scene, I don't think quipping would have been good. But he doesn't have an example. He says, "You seem to be in the dark. Let me illuminate you." And I was like, that's actually good. That's a good quip. I would have been okay if he said that. He said, it definitely feels like we didn't need to know how the rebels got the plans. Why would I can't. God.
What's the point of the movie?
Yeah.
What's the point of the movie? Then?
Yeah. It's like in Solo where it took Han Solo 4 days to become Han Solo. Yeah, the way that Han Solo becomes Han Solo is so stupid in that movie. But the whole, but that's the point of the fucking movie is to figure out
I was gonna
the
say.
plans. I don't know, whatever.
I'm sorry. I'm
Oh,
sorry. I hate to disagree with somebody like
See,
that,
Mike,
but it's
listen,
the whole point
we
of the
respect
movie.
Michael. Michael, I respect all of your opinions, even though I'm going to disagree with a lot of them. But I appreciate you sharing all your thoughts. He does have one more. It says to end on a
Ooh, what
Holy
happened?
shit.
I heard that.
My old mic arm just, I guess, I didn't even know it was there. It just fell off my desk. Cool. He said to end on a
Yeeted
positive note.
itself.
To end on a positive note, the mechanism to retrieve the plans felt very much like a nod to the machinery THX 1138 used in this film. and felt obscure enough to not be invasive. And I will confess, seeing Red and Gold Leader again made me smile. It made me smile too, especially when Schoening shared the fact that it's original footage from episode 4, which makes it even more special.
They just were rummaging through a warehouse, and they were just like, "Oh, hey, look at this."
Hey.
It's super cool. Michael, thank you for your huge analysis of this movie. And even if I didn't agree on a lot of it, I do appreciate you dropping that whole thing. Our next one is from Seismic Cinema. My favorite Star Wars movie. Love the characters and the action. The third act is amazing, and the cinematography is outstanding. The Andor series makes me appreciate this even more. Love it. Make sure, if you haven't yet, make sure to check out me and Schoening's review of Andor. It's pretty positive, right?
It's positive. It's just
too hard on it.
Yeah, it's positive.
And then the God of Pod, Movie Daft, said it's a masterpiece, a master class. Sorry, absolutely brilliant movie and so loyal to the original. Allied 6 years later now with Andor, and it's even better. Apart from Borg Gullet. Oh, Borg Gullet. Yeah, that scene was so unnecessary. It was so dumb. It was dumb.
Gross, but it was not. I mean, it was unnecessary, but I think I loved it because it was so out there.
We then have Jay Hall at Okie Bookcast. Sorry. It's a top 3 Star Wars film. Better than anything from episodes 1 through 3 or 7 through 9. Absolutely. Absolutely. I had to read that a few times just to make sure he didn't say 4 through 6. And I would have been like, no. But
no,
yes.
I did the same thing. I was like, wait a minute.
And yeah. That's it. That's all the comments. Thank you so much for everyone who left us a comment on this movie. We appreciate all the feedback. We love hearing other people's opinions on movies. Yes, it was great. Thank you so much. I try to post them every Saturday before we do our recordings. So to I don't want to do them early on, and I always forget because I'm a very forgetful person. Last week I didn't even read the comments for the movie we covered. I don't even remember if we got any, and I'm a terrible person. But
no.
hey, just sometimes that's how it works for my brain. So in my notes, I had to put read Twitter comments. So I didn't forget this time. But that's it, everybody. That is Rogue One, a Star Wars story. And that is our final review now until we jump into Christmas time, into the holidays of December, as we will be jumping into, as we did last year, we're going to be jumping into a Christmas. I'm going to put it in quotation because some of these movies might not be fully Christmas movies, but they are holiday movies that take place around that holiday. And we're going to be starting off with Angela's pick. We're going to be covering what year did this come out? 1991? 90?
Oh gosh, you want me to remember that?
I do. It's your movie.
I know, but I
think it might be 90. I could be wrong.
Let's see. Oh, look it up. 1990.
1990. See? Good brain on me. We're going to be covering 1990s Edward Scissorhands, starring Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder. I'm very excited because I just saw this movie not too long ago for the first time in years.
I was gonna say, whoa.
No, I've seen this movie throughout my childhood. It was Tim Burton's early stuff was always a staple in my household, and Edward Scissorhands might not have been up there with like Batman Returns, Beetlejuice, stuff like that, but like it had to be at least a yearly watch. But yeah, we're going to be covering Edward Scissorhands next week to start off our Christmas time specials. And I'm very excited because last year's went really well. And I just love talking about holiday movies. And I can't wait to get to mine just because it's going to piss somebody off. And that is the whole reason I'm doing it. But I am not going to share what movie that is going to be because we're going to focus on Edward Scissorhands next week. And Dan's going to be back. So excited.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be us three. It's going to be just me, Angela, and Dan. Like, I feel like it's been a while since it's just been us three. So we've been having all these amazing guests on the show. Schoening, thank you so much for being on the show and also for hanging out with me twice this week. Because
my pleasure.
You hung out with me to talk about Andor, and now you're doing this, and we'll definitely get you back for the next time a space-related show or movie releases.
I love it. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been such a blast having all the amazing guests we've had over the last few months, and you know, I don't think we're going to have any guests come the rest of this year, but there's only a few weeks left of the year, and then next year in 2023, we're going to be going crazy with guests. We're going to be asking them all. I already got people that I've asked. Like, I just got to get some dates set up. Some podcasts that have never been on the show. We're definitely going to be bringing back a lot of the podcasts that have been on the show already because, they're family now. Schoening's going to be back on the show. I mean, it's going to be a fucking party in 2023. It's going to be a party. We're going to be getting back to our franchises. We're actually going to jump into a franchise starting in 2023, which is going to be crazy because we don't even know what it's going to be yet. And maybe, just maybe, I'll finally start the fucking Patreon. Can't promise anything because I promised it last year and it didn't happen. But maybe, just maybe, 2023 will be the goddamn start of that damn Patreon that just eludes me.
Hold your breath.
And hopefully we're going to be also guesting on a lot of other people's shows. So we won't just be here, but maybe you'll be seeing our faces on other shows. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm so fucking excited about everything coming up. But, Schoening. I was almost so rude. Where can people find you?
Oh, just anywhere. Just type in @Schoening on any of the platforms. I have pretty much cornered the market on that. So,
yeah. All right. Well, all of his links will be down in the description for easy access. You can find Dissect That Film on all the socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Now we're on Hive. Because I needed to do another social media. Listen.
I mean, really.
It's there. It's there just in case. It's like, we all know it's not going to happen, but it's there just in case, But you can find us on all those social medias. Find us on YouTube, where you can watch the video version of this, or you can find the show on any of your favorite podcast apps. If you listen, a lot of people listen on Apple Podcasts, and you're not giving us any ratings. Do it. Schoening did it. Some other people have done it.
Did.
Do it. It helps our show. It gets more people to listen. Also, if you listen on Good Pods, where I listen, you can do the same thing. You can actually rate and review individual episodes or the show as a whole. Or wherever you listen. To be honest, I don't care. Wherever you listen, if you can rate us, please do it. It really helps, and we appreciate you very much. We appreciate everybody who listens to the show. We just hit 8,000 downloads on the show, which is absolutely insane. I don't know if we're going to hit 10,000 by the end of the year, but you know what? Fuck it. I don't care. Thank you all so much, because I didn't think we were going to get close to this number. But it's all because of you. All of you. I love you all. Appreciate you so much. Angela and all her links are going to be down in the description, because she doesn't like doing it, So
way to call me out. Gosh.
Is this the first time? Is this our first time here? Only 82 episodes in, and you're like, oh, thanks for calling me out. Something I've called you out on before.
No.
Oh,
I made Angela sad. I feel like
that
a terrible
Angela.
person.
You're so mean.
I'm
just kidding.
Terrible person. I am a terrible person.
I just can't remember them. Dan remembers them, and I can't. And I'm the one that set them up.
So many things. I don't even share my links anymore because I don't care. The show is more important to me.
One day they will all be the same. I promise. One day.
All right, everybody. We're going on too much of a tangent here. We love you all. Thank you so much. Until next time, I am Brett Parker. That is Angela of DNA Gaming. And that is Andrew Schoening. This has been the Dissect That Film Podcast, episode 82. See you all again next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.